Hello, welcome back to another video on the Cole Aggressive Racing YouTube channel and Facebook page. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the expenses for a race team and how getting sponsors can help cut the cost for the teams. Now, making this video, I am making it for the purposes of trying to explain how important sponsors are. I am not whining about the cost of anything. I want to make that clear because we know full on going into the season how much it's going to cost. We know it's going to be a lot, but I just want to try and put out there how important it is for businesses to sponsor race cars, and also how appreciative us drivers are of these businesses for sponsoring us, because it is very expensive to do, and without these guys we really could not make it possible, and that's what I'm trying to prove in this video. So we're going to break down three separate events. One is just going to be a local night race here at the Buffalo River Speedway right down the road from us. The second one is going to be the Wayzata 100 at the I-94 EMR Speedway. And the third one is going to be the John Seitz Memorial at the River City Speedway in Grand Forks. So we're going to start with the weekly show here. Just for us to go to the racetrack and get into the racetrack is going to be about $95. It's going to cost us about $15 in gas, about $80 in entry fees for me, my dad, my sister, and my mom. And just doing the bare minimum to the car when we get there would be adding fuel. And we don't use pump gas for race cars, we use a higher octane fuel, so it costs a little bit more, so right around $40 a night worth of race gas is what we kind of figured. So just to unload, get there and race is $135, which, you know, it doesn't sound too expensive, but we're going to get into how that can get expensive real quick. So I picked the Buffalo River Speedway to do this comparison for because they pay the best all the way through the field. So if you win the race, you start, it doesn't matter where you start, if you win, you get $300. That's what it is to win. If you get fourth, it's $175. Of course, they have pay positions in between there. And then if you just start the race, you get $50. So let's say you go out there and on lap one, you get in a wreck, you wreck a whole bunch of stuff, you have to pull off. You get $50. And you're already in the hole because you spent $135 just to get there. Now you bring your bent up car home and you have to replace these really expensive pieces on it. So I kind of just wrote down some of the most common pieces that we break. Just kind of some of the stuff that is very usual for us to break is a center link and a steering arm. Those are two of the most popular kind of things that would bend in a wreck for steering components, and those are each about $50 a piece. Tie rods are another one that are going to bend, and they're probably they're right around there. So just another thing, if you get in a wreck, you might bend a rim. And the standard rims are $150 a piece, and bead locks are $225 a piece. So let's just say you bend a bead lock and you didn't finish the race. You're still in the hole just to the bead lock for starting the feature. But let's say you start second, you win the race, you don't wreck anything, but you put a new tire on. A new tire is $140 a piece, which means you are barely breaking even if you don't wreck anything and win the race with a new tire. And just some of the stuff we'll talk about a little later in the video for the 100 and stuff. We ended up wrecking a radiator, which is about $300, a front bumper, which is about $100. And then let's just say you blow an engine. The engine is probably the most expensive part of all these cars, costing about $12,000. Now, once again, I want to make this clear. Like I said, I'm not trying to whine. I'm just trying to bring to attention how expensive this sport is and how appreciative us drivers are of our sponsors. Because let's just say we wreck an engine, $12,000 out of pocket's not, it's for a lot of people, it's not feasible. And so sponsor money coming at the beginning of the year, you still have that to fall back on. So maybe you're only paying $6,000 for it, or you're only paying $4,000. So just with that, it's helped so much. And as I mentioned, we can't all be more appreciative for it. I also broke down how expensive it was for us to race the engine each night. So the engine costing about $12 grand. We raced 40 times last year, which means every time we unloaded at the racetrack to race, it cost us $300 worth of, or for the engine just to run it. So therefore, racing a weekly show, you're not making any money, which like we mentioned with the interview with Mom, we don't do this to make money, but it sure hurts when you lose a lot of money. So you have to be very careful, and you can't really wreck a lot because that's all you do is just lose money then. Now we're going to switch over and start talking more about the special side of it. Now we're going to talk about the Wayzata 100, a 4-day show where you race Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to try and make the show on Saturday. Now Wednesday we only raced a heat race because we didn't make it in. Thursday we raced a heat and a feature, and then Saturday we raced a feature. Now once again, before we even get to thinking about the race car, we have to get to the racetrack, get into the event, and that all costs a lot of money, especially at the Wayzata 100. So this is going to be an example of even when you do well, you still lose a lot of money. So first up on the list is driving there. And we're going to take our RV because it's a 4-day show, so we're not going to go get a hotel or drive back and forth. We're going to spend the gas one time to get there. So that costs about $102 to go there and back with the camper. And then when you're there, you have to get power to all that so that you can keep your food cold, run the tire machine, all that stuff. So we figured there was about $30 worth of generator gas. And then this is where it gets really expensive. For me, my mom, my dad, and my little sister to get into the racetrack, it was about $720 worth of entry fees. And like normally we send Mom and Greta up to the stands. But for the 100, it gets to be very long nights, and it was only $5 more for them to come down in the pits, so we figured might as well just go in the pits. And then to park at the Wayzata 100, you have to pay a fee. So we parked a little bit closer to the racetrack because you had to pay whether you were going to park way out there or park close. We paid a little bit extra at $150 to park closer to the racetrack, which if you've ever been to the event, it's definitely worth doing because you could end up way out there. And then not only that, but you have to pay to draw. So we paid $50 to be able to draw for the whole week. And so now we're going to break down the costs for the car. So just to race Wednesday, Thursday, and then Saturday, it cost us about $90 worth of race gas for the race car. There's a lot of laps ran, and so it just cost more. And then we ended up putting a tire on for Saturday night and a couple tires on for Thursday night just to try and get through the field. And also used up some other tires that we ran at the sites, which were still pretty nice. And so we figured right around $400 worth of tires were used at this event. And then if you watched my Wayzata 100 video, we also wrecked a lot of stuff. So we figured right around $500 in parts, which, as I mentioned, a radiator and a front bumper costing about $400 total was a big chunk of that. So the event in total cost us $2,038 is right around what we figured. But that's not our total cost because I ended up going from 24th to 5th in the Wayzata 100, which pays pretty well. It paid $1,305. So if we subtract those two numbers, we still ended up down $735. So now we're going to go to the Sites Memorial, where we had great success, and we also had some sponsors step up and help pay for us to do this, and that I'm going to show that in these examples here. It's a little bit closer than it is for Fergus Falls for us, so it's about $85 worth of gas to get there in the RV, and I figured right around $26 again for the generator, just to because it ran for pretty much the same amount of time. Now the entry fee at the John Sites Memorial, it was a tour race, so we had to pay a little bit more. But for the 4 of us to get in the pits again, it was right around $510. And once again, we ran a lot of laps this weekend, so we figured right around $90 worth of race gas wasn't out of line. Now these were tour races, and I ended up starting up front in a lot of them, so we actually bought a lot of tires this weekend. We actually ended up buying 2, except we had some sponsors step up and buy us 3 additional tires. So once again, thank you to those sponsors that did that. I can't say thanks enough. That cut costs for us immensely, as that would be an additional about $500 that we would have had to spend. So our total cost to go race the John Sites Memorial up in Grand Forks was right under $1,000. And I ended up winning both features that night, or those nights, and brought home $2,752. Now once again, I mentioned this is a good weekend. This is the best weekend I've ever had in racing. And we profited $1,781. But then you go, and the next weekend we went to the 100, and pretty much all that was gone again. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not doing this to whine. We're full on aware of this, and I get sponsors for this reason. So I just want to say, once again, thank you to any business that sponsors a race car. And if you know anybody that would be willing to sponsor, reach out to them and see if they would, because no race car driver is ever going to tell a company no. We are appreciative for every dollar we can get. So if you know somebody who owns a business or works at a business, check with your employer. Just see if they'd be willing to sponsor a race car, because drivers, as I mentioned, they're never going to say no. And not only that, but maybe looking to see if they'd be willing to sponsor a racetrack. Maybe if they would sponsor a racetrack, we could get paid a little bit more every week and not lose so much. So maybe reach out to somebody you know and see if they'd be willing to sponsor any kind of race car, whether it's mine, a late model, a sprint car. Just check it out, because it is a super expensive sport, and we could not be more thankful for those that already do that. And if you see a business on the side of a race car or on the billboards at the racetrack, try to patronize with those businesses, please. If you see a business on my car and you need something done that they could help with, please go use them. And then when you use them, tell them that you've seen them on my car. Businesses love to hear that, and it's great for them too, because it shows that we are pulling business for them. So please support within the racing community and support those businesses that help us out. But anyways, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll try and answer them the best we can. And just want to say thanks again to everybody. And when I say we could not do this without our sponsors, we truly could not do this without our sponsors. So boom, 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 out go the lights.